Close your eyes and let your mind drift to the northern realms. Imagine a world where the air is cold, crisp, and carries the faint, sweet scent of wild lilacs and gooseberries. You are standing on a winding dirt road, a path that has been traveled by kings, peasants, and monsters alike. But tonight, this path belongs only to you and the rhythmic sound of a traveler's journey. Listen to the wind. It's a gentle, mournful breeze that whispers through the ancient birch trees, making their silver leaves dance in the twilight. Beside you stands Geralt of Rivia. Feel the stillness of his presence. He is a man made of silver and shadows, a witcher whose life is measured in centuries and scars. Hear the soft creak of his leather armor as he moves, a sound of worn, seasoned materials that have survived 1,000 battles. He isn't rushing. On the path, time slows down. There is only the next step, the next breath, and the steady, hollow beat of his horse's hooves against the dry earth. Roach's footsteps create a hypnotic cadence. Step, pause, step, pause. It is the heartbeat of the road, a song that lulls the world into a deep, heavy slumber. The sun begins to set over White Orchard, painting the sky in shades of deep amber, bruised violet, and burnt orange. Imagine the sight of the orchards, hundreds of apple trees with their white blossoms glowing like fallen stars in the fading light. But beneath the beauty, there is a heavy silence. The war has passed through here, leaving behind a land that is weary and broken. You can smell the wood smoke from distant chimneys, a warm and domestic scent that mingles with the cold mist rising from the river. It's the smell of homes where people huddle together against the dark, unaware of the witcher passing by like a shadow. Geralt stops and kneels by a dying campfire. Listen to the final gasps of the flames, the soft crackle and pop of the embers as they turn to gray ash. He reaches out a hand, feeling the fading warmth. He is looking for Yennefer, a woman who is a storm in human form. The search is long, a thread pulled through the needle of a chaotic world. But for now, there is only the peace of the trail. The mountains in the distance are jagged silhouettes against the stars, and the moon is a cold silver coin watching over the sleepers. As you walk beside him, the world becomes a blur of shadows and silver light. Every breath you take is slow and deep. The weight of the world lifts, replaced by the steady, comforting rhythm of the witcher's journey. The path is long, but you are safe in the silence. The journey into the heart of the north has just begun, and the night is long, vast, and filled with the quiet magic of the unknown. Leave the white blossoms of the orchard behind. Imagine the air growing heavy, thick with the scent of damp peat, stagnant water, and the ancient rot of a forest that has seen too many wars. You have entered Vilan, the no man's land. It is a place where the sky is a bruised sheet of slate gray, and the sun is a pale, ghost-like coin struggling to pierce through the endless mist. Feel the humidity against your skin, a cold moisture that clings to your cloak and seeps into your very bones. Listen to the sound of Roach's hooves now. They are no longer clicking against dry earth. Instead, they sink into the thick black muck of the marshes. Squish, thud, squish. It is a slow, hypnotic rhythm of a long struggle. The world here moves at the pace of the swamp. Every step is deliberate. Geralt sits tall in the saddle, his yellow eyes scanning the horizon. He doesn't move with urgency. He moves with the patience of the earth itself. The leather of his saddle creaks rhythmically, a comforting domestic sound in this vast, lonely wilderness. Imagine the trees that line the narrow paths. They are not like the trees, you know. They are twisted, their leafless branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, clawing at the fog. They stand as silent witnesses to the history of this land. From their branches, black crows watch in absolute silence. Occasionally, one will take flight, its wings beating heavily against the thick air, a sharp, rhythmic flap, flap, flap that echoes for miles across the stillness of the moor. The sound fades into the distance, leaving behind an even deeper silence, a silence that feels alive. They approach the outskirts of a village that has long been forgotten by the living. The wooden huts are gray and weathered, their thatched roofs sagging like heavy eyelids. You can smell the faint, lingering scent of old wood smoke and wet straw. There is no laughter here, only the low, mournful lowing of a lone cow in the distance and the constant, rhythmic dripping of water from a broken gutter. Drip, drop, drip. It is the clock of the swamp, counting the seconds of an eternity. Geralt dismounts, his boots splashing softly into a puddle. The water ripples outward, reflecting the somber gray of the sky before settling back into a perfect, glassy mirror. High above the marshes sits Crow's Perch, the wooden fortress of the Bloody Baron. It is a jagged silhouette against the darkening clouds. As they climb the path toward the gates, the sound of the wind changes. It whistles through the gaps in the sharpened stakes of the palisade, creating a low, haunting flute-like melody. Inside the walls, the air smells of wood fire, cheap ale, and the sharp tang of horse sweat. Men huddle around communal fires, their faces orange and flickering in the darkness. You can hear the crackle of the logs, the snapping of dry pine, and the low, gravelly mumble of soldiers telling tales of ghosts and gold. The Baron's Hall is a place of shadows and secrets. The floorboards groan underfoot, a deep wooden sound that speaks of age and burden. Large tapestries hang from the walls, moving ever so slightly in the draft, their embroidered figures seeming to dance in the dim torchlight. Geralt stands before the hearth, the warmth of the fire pressing against his face, yet his eyes remain as cold as the swamp outside. He is here for a family lost, a wife and a daughter who vanished like mist in the wind. The silence between the Baron's words is filled with the weight of things unsaid. As the night deepens over Velen, the world outside vanishes into a sea of black, leaving only the flickering fire and the steady, rhythmic breathing of the Witcher as he prepares for the darkness that lies ahead. Deepen your breath and let the world around you fade into a thick silver mist. We are moving further into the heart of Velen, where the land stops being earth and begins to breathe like a living thing. Imagine the smell of Crookback Bog. It is a heavy, ancient scent, a mixture of damp moss, sweet, rotting flowers, and a lingering musk of something very old and very hungry. The air here is still, so still that you can hear the heartbeat of the swamp pulsing beneath the stagnant water. Listen to the sound of the fog. It doesn't just drift, it whispers. It clings to the gnarled roots of the weeping willows that bow over the dark pools. Geralt guides Roach along a path known to the locals as the Trail of Treats. Imagine the sight. Small, colorful candies and wooden charms hanging from the branches of twisted trees. They look like gems in the gray gloom, a trail of false promises designed to lead the innocent into the deep. The sound of Roach's hooves is muffled here, a soft, rhythmic thump, thump against the waterlogged moss, as if the ground itself is trying to silence the Witcher's arrival. They reach a clearing where a small wooden hut stands on stilts. It looks like it grew out of the mud itself. You can hear the laughter of children, a high silver sound that feels fragile against the oppressive weight of the swamp. It is an orphanage at the edge of the world. Imagine the warmth of the small fire burning outside the hut, the orange sparks dancing toward the heavy sky. The children are small, their eyes bright with a strange kind of hope. They speak of the ladies of the wood, the mysterious guardians who live in the shadows and watch over the bog. But listen to the wind as it passes through the reeds. There is a deeper, gravelly voice hidden within the rustle. The crones. Imagine the presence of the three sisters, Wispis, Bruis, and Weaveses. They are not seen yet, but they are felt in every ripple of the water and every creak of the trees. They are the tapestry weavers of fate, their fingers moving through the threads of human lives like needles through silk. The air around the orphanage feels electric, charged with an ancient dark magic that makes the hair on your neck stand up. It is a magic that smells of blood and honey. Geralt stands by the large tapestry that hangs on the wall of the hut. It depicts three beautiful women, but the truth behind the silk is far more jagged. Imagine the sound of a distant, rhythmic chanting, a low-frequency hum that vibrates through the soles of your boots. It is the swamp speaking to its masters. The Witcher is a man of logic, but here, logic dissolves like salt in water. He must follow the whispers, deeper into the dark, toward the Whispering Hill, where a different kind of heart beats within the roots of an ancient oak. As the moon rises, a pale sliver behind the clouds, the bog settles into a restless sleep, and the shadows begin to move, weaving a story of sacrifice and survival in the silent silver dark. Leave the mud and the whispers of the bog behind. As you ride north, the horizon begins to change. The crooked, dying trees of Velen give way to golden wheat fields, and the silence of the swamp is replaced by the distant, collective hum of humanity. You are approaching Novigrad, the city of eternal fire. Imagine the sight as you crest the final hill, a sprawling metropolis of stone and timber, its red tilted roofs glowing like embers in the late afternoon sun. The air here is different. It's thick with the smell of sea salt from the Great Sea, roasted spices, expensive perfumes, and the underlying iron tang of a city that never sleeps. Listen to the change in Roach's footsteps. The soft squelch of mud is gone, replaced by the sharp, rhythmic click-clack of hooves against hard granite cobblestones. This is the sound of civilization. Geralt moves through the great gate. His silver hair, a stark contrast to the colorful tunics of the merchants and the dark robes of the eternal fire priests. Imagine the vibration of the city beneath your feet, the rumbling of wooden cartwheels, the distant ringing of temple bells, and the muffled shouting of 1,000 voices blending into a single, hypnotic wave of sound. Even in this crowd, the Witcher is an island of stillness, a predator moving through a sea of prey. They pass through the Hierarch Square. You can smell the sharp, acrid scent of burning wood and incense from the pyres. It is a city of beauty, but it is also a city of fear. Geralt navigates the narrow, winding alleys of the Bits, where the buildings lean so close together they seem to be whispering secrets across the street. The light here is fragmented, falling in golden shafts through the laundry hanging overhead. Imagine the sound of a lone lute playing from a distant window, a high, melancholy melody that drifts through the air like a ghost. It is the sound of a city that hides its heart behind iron locks and heavy curtains. They reach a small, tilted house in the heart of the city. This is the sanctuary of Triss's Marigold. Imagine the smell of the room as Geralt enters. It's a mixture of dried rose petals, old parchment, and a faint, magical shimmer of ginger and blue lotus. The chaos of the streets vanishes the moment the door closes. Here, the air is warm and still. You can hear the rhythmic ticking of a clock on the mantel and the soft crackle of a small fire in the hearth. Triss's is a flame of hope in this gray world. Her presence is a soft light, her voice a calm harbor after the storm of the marshes. Geralt sits by the window, watching the shadows grow long over the rooftops of Novigrad. The city begins to settle into its nightly rhythm. The distant shouting fades, replaced by the soft glow of thousands of candles flickering in windows like earthbound stars. The Witcher is a traveler of the wilds, but even he finds a moment of rest in this golden, shadowed sanctuary. The search for Ciri continues through the back alleys and the high parlors of the elite. But for now, there is only the peace of the flickering fire and the steady, rhythmic breathing of two friends reunited in the heart of the storm. The city sleeps, but its secrets remain awake, weaving a web of intrigue and magic in the silent amber dark. Leave the golden shadows of Novigrad behind. Imagine the air turning cold, sharp as a silver blade, as you sail across the great sea. The smell of the city, the spices and the wood smoke is replaced by the raw, powerful scent of salt, kelp, and the oncoming winter. You are approaching the Skellige Isles. Imagine the sight of the jagged peaks rising from the dark, churning water like the teeth of a frozen giant. The sky here is vast and restless, a moving tapestry of indigo, slate, and the pale, ghostly white of a northern sun. Listen to the sound of the waves. It is a deep, rhythmic roar, the heartbeat of the ocean itself. Crush, withdraw, crush. It is a sound of immense power and ancient patience. Geralt stands on the deck of a longship, his white hair whipping in the freezing gale. Feel the spray of the sea against your face, a cold, stinging mist that tastes of salt and adventure. The wooden hull of the ship groans and creaks, a rhythmic, wooden sigh as it cuts through the icy swells. Here, in the open water, the world feels infinite, a place where the small worries of men are swallowed by the vast, blue silence of the deep. They reach the shores of Skellige. Imagine the change in the atmosphere. The ground beneath your feet is no longer mud or cobblestone. It is hard, ancient granite covered in a thin, shimmering layer of frost. The air is so thin and pure that every breath feels like a drink of cold spring water. You can hear the distant, haunting cry of a mountain eagle, a high-pitched sound that echoes through the narrow fjords and fades into the mist. It is a land of heroes and legends, where the wind tells stories of kings long dead and battles fought beneath a silver moon. They climb the steep, winding path toward Kaer Morhen, the fortress carved into the very side of a mountain. Imagine the smell of the citadel. It's a mixture of roasting venison, old pine, and the sharp, floral scent of lilac and gooseberries. Yennefer is here. Her presence is a storm in the center of the frost. Imagine the sight of her raven hair against the white snow, her eyes the color of bruised violets. When she speaks, her voice is a calm, commanding melody that cuts through the howling wind. In her room, overlooking the harbor, the air is warm and still. You can hear the crackle of a large hearth and the rhythmic scratching of a quill against parchment. Geralt stands on the balcony, watching the longships bobbing in the dark water far below. The stars over Skellige are brighter than anywhere else, like diamonds scattered across a velvet cloth. The silence of the mountains is absolute, broken only by the occasional rumble of a distant avalanche or the soft, rhythmic sigh of the sea against the rocks. The search for Ciri has led them to the edge of the world, to a land of ice and honor. As the night deepens, the Witcher settles into the stillness of the peaks, his breathing steady and calm, ready for the secrets hidden beneath the eternal frost of the north. Leave the salt and the spray of the Skellige Sea behind. As you travel east, the landscape rises into the clouds, becoming a world of jagged blue peaks and ancient silent forests. You are entering the valley of Kaer Morhen, the fortress of the Wolf School. Imagine the air here. It is the purest air in the world, smelling of mountain spring water, old pine needles, and the sharp, clean scent of high-altitude snow. The silence is different here. It is a heavy, sacred silence that feels like it has been undisturbed for 1,000 years. Listen to the sound of roaches' hooves as they strike the narrow, winding mountain pass. It is a sharp, echoing click-clack against the gray granite. The sound travels across the valley, bouncing off the sheer cliff faces and fading into the mist. Below, a river rushes through the canyon, a deep, rhythmic roar that sounds like the earth itself is breathing. Geralt looks up at the ruined walls of the fortress. Imagine the sight of the crumbling battlements against the silver moonlight, their broken silhouettes looking like the jagged teeth of a sleeping beast. This is home. A home made of stone, blood, and shared silence. They cross the iron-bound gates. Imagine the atmosphere inside the courtyard. It is overgrown with mountain grass and wildflowers that have pushed through the cracks in the stone. Arsail and Nedenth, air is still, carrying the faint, metallic scent of the old training grounds. You can almost hear the ghostly echoes of young voices from centuries ago, the rhythmic clashing of wooden practice swords against shields. Thwack, thwack. It is a memory held within the very stones of the fortress. Geralt dismounts, his boots crunching softly on the gravel. The sound is small, yet it feels momentous in this vast, empty place. They enter the great hall. It is a cavernous space of shadows and flickering orange light. Imagine the smell of the interior. It's a mixture of damp stone, old parchment, and the warm, comforting scent of oak logs burning in the massive central hearth. Vesnir is there, the oldest of the wolves, his face a map of 1,000 winters. When he speaks, his voice is like the low rumble of a distant avalanche, gravelly, wise, and filled with a quiet strength. You can hear the rhythmic crackle of the fire and the soft, steady ticking of a clock that hasn't missed a beat in decades. Geralt sits by the fire, the warmth pressing against his weary bones. Outside, the mountain wind howls through the arrow slits, a high-pitched, mournful tune that emphasizes the safety of the hearth. The Witcher is no longer a hunter here. He is a son returning to the den. They talk of the past, their voices low and calm, blending with the shifting shadows on the walls. The search for Ciri has brought them back to the beginning, to the place where destiny was first forged in trial and fire. As the night deepens over the blue mountains, the fortress settles into a restless peace, and the Witcher closes his eyes, his breathing steady, finding a moment of true rest in the heart of the ancient silver dark. Close your eyes and imagine the sound of water gently lapping against the sides of a small wooden boat. Lull, splash, lull. You are leaving the solid ground of the world behind, drifting into the heart of the lake where the great fog begins. The air here is cold and heavy, smelling of damp earth, lake weeds, and the strange metallic tang of ancient magic. You cannot see the sun or the moon. There is only a vast, endless wall of white, shifting mist that swallows the light and softens every sound. Geralt sits at the oars, his movements slow and rhythmic. Imagine the creak of the oarlocks, a steady, wooden groan that echoes through the silence. The boat moves like a ghost through the water. Occasionally, a small, glowing wisp of light appears in the fog, guiding the way like a tiny, stuttering star. There is no wind here, only the stillness of a world held in a deep, magical slumber. The heartbeat of the Witcher is the only clock in this void, a slow and steady drumbeat of hope and dread. They reach the shore of the Isle of Mists. The sand is pale, almost white under the silver gloom. Imagine the sight of the crooked, leafless trees rising from the mist like skeletal guardians. The ground is covered in thick emerald moss that muffles every footstep. It is a place where time has no meaning. Geralt walks toward a small, lonely hut at the center of the island. You can hear the distant, melancholy cry of a loon, a high-pitched sound that fades into the fog without an echo. Inside the hut, the atmosphere is warm, but heavy with a strange, deep sleep. Imagine the smell of the interior. It's a mixture of dried herbs, wood smoke, and the faint, sweet scent of elderflower. There, on a simple wooden bed, lies Ciri. She is as still as a statue, her pale hair spread across the pillow like silver thread. Her breathing is so light, so shallow, that for a moment the world seems to stop. Geralt kneels beside her, his large, scarred hand trembling as he reaches out to touch her face. The silence in the room is absolute, a vacuum of sound where years of searching and loss finally converge. Suddenly, the magic breaks. A small golden light returns to her eyes. Imagine the sound of her first deep breath, a long, ragged sigh that brings life back into the room. The transition from death-like sleep to a living, breathing daughter is a miracle of the quiet dark. They embrace, their voices mere whispers that are lost in the vast, white silence of the island. The search is over, but the world is still waiting outside the mist. For this brief moment, there is only the rhythmic breathing of two souls reunited, a sanctuary of peace in the heart of the storm. The night on the island is long and silver, a dream from which they must eventually wake, but for now, the silence is kind. The air over Kaer Morhen has turned into a wall of ice. Imagine the sky. It is no longer blue or gray, but a terrifying, sickly shade of emerald and frost white. The wild hunt has arrived. You can smell the oncoming blizzard. It's a sharp, metallic scent of frozen magic and ancient death. The silence of the mountains is shattered by the sound of the Naglhar, the ghost ship of the Aal, tearing through the fabric of the world. It is a deep, tectonic groan that vibrates in your very teeth. Listen to the sound of the preparations. Inside the fortress, the atmosphere is heavy with the scent of sharpening stones and hot oil. Shirring, shirring. The rhythmic sound of steel against stone is the heartbeat of a cornered beast. Geralt stands on the battlements, his amber eyes reflecting the unnatural green lightning that dances across the clouds. Beside him, the other witchers move like shadows. You can hear the soft creak of their leather gloves tightening around the hilts of their silver swords. Every breath is a white plume of frost in the freezing air, a slow, deliberate rhythm before the chaos begins. Suddenly, the cold hits. It is a magical frost that freezes the breath in your throat. Imagine the sound of the ice growing a sharp, crystalline crack, crack, crack as it encases the stones of the castle. The warriors of the Wild Hunt emerge from the portals, their plate armor shimmering like frozen scales. The sound of their march is a rhythmic, hollow clanking against the frozen ground. It is a dance of ice and fire. You can hear the roar of igniscience, the searing hiss of magical flames meeting the eternal cold. But even the fire feels small against the infinite darkness of the white frost. The climax happens in the center of the courtyard. Everything slows down. Imagine the silence at the heart of the storm. Vesmir, the old Wolf, stands between Ciri and the abyss. His voice is a calm, steady growl amidst the screaming wind. "Fly, you fool," he whispers. The sound of his final act of defiance is not a shout, but a quiet, snapping breath that echoes through the souls of everyone present. It is the end of an era. The eldest Witcher falls, and for a moment, even the wind stops. The silence that follows is absolute, a vacuum of sound where grief and power finally collide. Ciri's scream shatters the world. It is a primal, magical release that smells of ozone and pure, unbridled energy. Imagine the sound of the white frost retreating, the ice shattering into a million diamond-like shards. The wild hunt is forced back into the dark. As the green light fades and the sun begins to rise over the ruined walls, the air smells of ash and melting snow. Geralt kneels in the center of the debris, his breathing heavy and ragged. The battle is over, but the fortress of the wolves is now a tomb of memories. The night is gone, replaced by a cold, gray dawn, where the path leads only toward the final confrontation. The cycle returns to where it began. Imagine the air of Velen once more, but this time it does not smell of fear. It smells of destiny and cold, sharpened silver. Geralt and Ciri stand at the edge of Crookback Bog. The mist is thick, a heavy velvet curtain of gray that clings to the skin like a wet shroud. Listen to the sound of the swamp. It is no longer a whisper, but a low-frequency hum of ancient powers realizing their end is near. The heartbeat of the bog is erratic, a frantic, wet thumping beneath the stagnant water. Listen to the sound of Ciri's breathing. It is fast, sharp, and filled with a controlled fire. She is no longer the girl lost in the fog. She is a storm unleashed. As she moves through the reeds, the sound of her boots is a rhythmic, splashing cadence against the black muck. Splosh, thud, splosh. Beside her, Geralt is a shadow of steel. You can hear the soft, metallic shing as he draws his silver blade, the sound vibrating through the silent air like a funeral bell. There is no wind here, only the heavy expectation of a debt about to be paid in blood. The crones appear. Imagine the sight of them. Wispus, Bruus, and Weaves, their grotesque forms twisted like the roots of a dying tree. Their voices are a cacophony of scratching, wet sounds, like thousands of insects crawling over dry parchment. They speak of ancient contracts and a taste of flesh, but the air around them begins to crackle. Ciri moves like a flash of emerald light. Imagine the sound of her teleporting, a sharp, vacuum-like pop, followed by the whistle of her blade through the thick air. It is a dance of vengeance, a rhythmic series of strikes that echo through the hollow trees. The battle is a blur of mud and magic. You can hear the heavy, wet thud of the crones falling, the sound of the swamp swallowing its own masters. The screams of the sisters are high-pitched and jagged, fading into a gurgling silence as the silver finds its mark. As the last of the darkness is cut away, a strange peace settles over the bog. Imagine the smell of the air now. The stench of rot is fading, replaced by the clean, sharp scent of ozone and the coming rain. The oppressive weight that has held Velen for centuries begins to lift, like a heavy stone being rolled away from a grave. Geralt and Ciri stand in the center of the clearing, their breathing heavy and synchronized. The silence that follows is not a silence of fear, but a silence of completion. Listen to the rhythmic dripping of blood and mud from their blades. Drip, drop, drip. It is the only clock left in this desolate place. The sun, a pale and tired eye, finally pierces through the thinning mist, casting long golden shadows across the water. The debt is paid. The ghosts of the orphanage are at rest. As they turn their backs on the swamp, the path ahead is clear, leading toward the final white frost, where the story of the Witcher and his daughter will find its ultimate echo. Close your eyes and breathe in the absolute stillness of the end. The world has turned white, not the soft white of a morning snow, but the ancient, blinding white of the frost that waits at the edge of time. You are standing on the shores of Unvik, where the sea is frozen into jagged glass sculptures, and the wind no longer howls, but sighs like a dying god. The air here is so thin and pure, it smells of ozone, starlight, and the heavy silence of eternity. Geralt and Ciri stand before the elven tower, Tor Gavalka. Imagine the sight, a needle of dark stone piercing the swirling emerald clouds of the magical storm. The atmosphere is electric, charged with a power that makes the silver hair on the Witcher's neck stand up. Listen to the sound of their footsteps, a slow, rhythmic crunch against the deep, pristine snow. Crunch, pause, crunch. It is the final beat of a journey that has spanned continents, wars, and lifetimes. There is no more running. There is only the tower and the sacrifice that waits inside. Imagine the last embrace. The smell of old leather and mountain pine from Geralt, and the scent of elderflower and adrenaline from Ciri. Their breathing is synchronized, two hearts beating as one against the freezing void. When Ciri pulls away, her eyes are not filled with fear, but with a terrifying, beautiful resolve. "It's my story, not yours," she whispers. Her voice is a soft melody that cuts through the crackling energy of the portal. The silence that follows is the heaviest sound in the world, the sound of a father letting go. As Ciri disappears into the white light, the world seems to hold its breath. Imagine Geralt sitting in the snow, leaning against a frozen rock. He is a man of 100 years, and in this moment, every year is visible in the way he rests his head. Listen to the rhythmic, distant rumble of the white frost being pushed back, a low-frequency vibration that feels like the world is resettling its bones. The emerald light fades, replaced by the soft, golden glow of a setting sun that finally breaks through the clouds. It is the first real sunset of a new era. The snow begins to fall gently now, soft flakes that dance in the amber light. Imagine the smell of the air changing. The metallic tongue of magic is gone, replaced by the honest, cold scent of a winter evening. Geralt closes his eyes, his breathing slow, steady, and deep. The path has led him here, to this moment of absolute hard-earned peace. The monsters are gone, the contracts are fulfilled, and the daughter of destiny has found her own way. As the night settles over the mountains, the silver dark returns, but it is no longer cold. It is a blanket of rest, a final sanctuary for the white wolf. The story ends not with a shout, but with the quiet, rhythmic sigh of a soul finally at home.